Hi, my name is Ronan Kennedy and I'm a career coach. And today I'm talking to Victor Soto. Did I get your name right, Victor?
That's great.
Fantastic. He's very kindly taken the time to speak to us today about his career journey so far. Victor, thanks so much for coming over to speak to us.
Thanks for the invite, Ronan.
So tell me, what do you do?
Oh, I will change that slightly to what makes me happy.
Fantastic.
And I think one of the key things that makes me happy at what I do has been working with people. So I've been working in sales management for the last 5 years, working in B2B sales for the last 8 years, more or less. And I think one of the things that makes me happy at most is being able to build stuff when it comes to processes for B2B companies, setting up teams, everything that required to be efficient, but on the side of it, actually also building people up to what is required to work in a sales positive environment.
That's great. So you're kind of a coach, a mentor, a leader, someone who tries to get the best out of the people they work with.
I think this is probably something that I've allowed myself to embody it and see. And also after, a couple of years, you realize that that's what you're doing, even if you don't really think about it and walk into that and you realize, oh, actually I'm doing a lot of coaching and I'm psychologist of my team, because especially in sales, which is very up and down environment, you have to be continuously emotionally conscious of what's happening, the energy you're bringing, and you want to create a culture to take us through these. So
that's so interesting, because I think maybe the idea a lot of people would have about sales is that it's all about numbers, it's all about being really tough, it's all about jumping on the phone, all these other things. So it's like fascinating to hear from a sales director who's like all about people.
Yeah. Again, it is all about numbers. It is all about discipline. It is all about taking actions. But the biggest blockers to any of those are actually on the mental side, and both in the emotional side. It's all dealing with, to be able to work with the fact that there's a number objective every month, and every time the clock is resetting, you have to be able to work on the mental side.
So how do you get the best out of the team?
Wow.
What's your secret sauce? What are your well-guarded secrets?
I always try to, when I went into the companies and I had to look at a new team, I always try to look at things in 3 areas, both on what is happening on the processes side, what is happening on the mental side, and also if they have the tools. So when it comes to process, I'm trying to understand what is set up, what are the steps that everybody's following. When it comes to the mindset and the mental side, it's okay, how do people in this environment are behaving? They're very career orientated. Why are they here in the first place? What is driving those people mentally, and the mindset that they share? Are they, have they been through a difficult couple of months and therefore I'm having to pick up a team, or they already are actually very successful and therefore there's a change of management, and now I need to be conscious that I'm coming in with, I need to approach them in a very different manner. Or maybe it's actually, most of the time it's going to be a mix. And when it comes to tools, it's tools and skills. Do they have the abilities to do what is required for them to actually continue to grow? So what stage of their career they are, how aware they are about the skills, and kind of like what can I bring to actually enhance those skills? So processes, mindset, and skills will be kind of the 3 layers I look into.
Very good. And what's the biggest challenge people have? Is it building up the confidence to make deals? Is it negotiating with customers and clients, or is it using the tools effectively?
So many of the times I like to start with the mindset, because I think this is probably the one that, again, every leader will have a very different approach to the leadership, right? It's like your own sports team, and how do you approach, winning? How do you approach working hard? How do you approach celebration? How do you approach failure? And you kind of want to, check on the mindset of the team and the individuals. Again, are they kind of like individual players, and that they come from a culture that they all kind of owned by themselves. So kind of actually we have a kind of a group that we all have to go in together. So we continuously, and for me, it was very much of like community was a big thing in my life. And so therefore I see it always as a team. And we were all team players. So I always try to leverage that exchange of knowledge that we all have to support each other. Not just independent players, but again, different teams, different leaders have success in different ways.
Oh, so you're really getting a strong feel for each individual, like listening to where they are at the journey, coming in, not just imposing your ideas, but really listening to them carefully to see what's going to work for them. Very, very sort of nuanced when you think about it, right? But I'm also interested because I think a lot of good leaders, they're really good at leading other people. But I always think that the first person you lead is yourself. Like how you speak to yourself, how you look after yourself, how you build your own confidence. What do you find is, and I suppose a lot of people I speak to, building confidence, building like victories in their own head of what they've done well, speaking nicely to themselves. They're all really important things. What do you find works really well when you're trying to focus on the good stuff?
Yeah. So definitely, with coming in with being a leader for me was not so much of, it's not about the position and the power you have, because then it really depends on the culture as well a little bit, and how they respond to hierarchy. But I liked it to keep, again, like when I come in, I'm like pretty much one of the first things that I will try to establish with the team is, guys, I'm here to, like in the people that I have to serve, you are one of the people that I'm trying to serve.
Right.
You're not here to make, I'm here to make you better, because this is my job. My job is to get you to do the best you can. And that way we're all happy, because that means I reach my goals. I'm here to help you. Think about it. So I'm not to serve the company. I'm first here to serve you.
That's really nice. You're putting yourself under them in the hierarchy in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when they see it that way, it kind of is like, okay, so you're here to listen to me. Yeah, I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to make sure that you can do that. I'm not here to check on your results. I'm here to help you make sure that you reach your results. And identify, change whatever you need to change. I'm not here to push you. It's not, it's really the dynamic between push and pull. It's like, no, you come to me, I'm observing and giving you stuff rather than having to be, but again, you also try to create some type of, energy there. And sometimes it's not even me keeping that high energy. I'm like, guys, let's continue. We need to do some hard work. But also the team members, like, that communication is happening across the team, keeping accountable to each other. Do
you find when you look after the team and you focus on them, that the results kind of look after themselves? Or do you, there's that, some people are like, always focus on the rule. We need to do this, we need to do that. And other people, they focus on the action. And like, if we focus on the action, like there's this famous leadership coach, John Wooden, he's all like, just focus on the actions and then the results look after themselves. Or do you feel as a director, you kind of have to really keep your eye on both of them?
I think normally I do try to bring the perspective of like, look at the time and look at the goals, and to adapt to the actions. Because sometimes, especially let's say if a team is doing an outbound campaign and the action is come in, take 10 calls or 20 calls every day, appointments. And so they're like in efficiency mode. So they're trying to have the conversations. But sometimes someone to come in and tell them like, now stop and see what has happened over the last week. What did go well? What did you heard? What was the feedback? What can you change? And now we are like week 3 to the month. You have to take some action. So I think in that perspective is, I'm not there to tell them what action they need to take. I'm there to help them in the reflection at the time of the month that needs to take place.
That's fascinating. You're very in the coaching mode, right? You're getting them to reflect. You're building them up. You're listening to them carefully.
Yeah, and like if it's closer to the end of the month, like, guys, what do we need to keep that fire burning? What do we need to focus? What are the priorities? Because I think again they're in the action mode. That means that they take a step back from prioritization. They take time off from not reflecting enough. So. Right. those are the touch points that like I bring in during the period.
That's super interesting, the way you're tweaking the whole time, as opposed to this is what we have to do, and then let's just keep hammering it like 10 times all throughout the month. Can I ask you about Uber? You worked with Uber before as well.
Yes.
So I think when I think of the companies like Uber, I think, well, it's super exciting to be part of a fast tech company, but at the same time, I imagine that's like, you know, you hear mixed reviews of these companies, and I imagine it could be stressful as well, or maybe it's a bit of both, like it's stressful because it's exciting.
Yeah.
How did you find working with Uber?
Fast-paced company, you know, a company which is very action-orientated. And I think I love it because their goal was to be number one. And it had that energy. It had in the metrics always kind of like, we are in this market. This is how many downloads our app is having. On like, we just went to number 2. And like, okay, so what do we do? So being number one as a mindset. And I have worked with other companies where they were shy away. We're like, oh no, we were just going to improve our percentage of the market. No, Uber was kind of like one of the first companies, like, we want to be number one.
Wow.
And that came with an energy, like, we need to change. We want to innovate. We want to bring things first to the market. And that means that the wheel is spinning a much faster pace, which is also great because I think that the bureaucracy, I didn't felt that much.
No time
for bureaucracy. You know, someone, I think he had a very open culture of calling out bureaucracy at any level of management. If a presentation of a process that needed to change took 3 weeks, like, why didn't that take 1 week? Someone could call it out. Or I'm having this block from actually executing what we need. You can call it out. It was completely open, and someone would be like, okay, what do you need to actually make it happen tomorrow?
That can be great if people are open and they can take constructive feedback quite well. If they can't, that could be challenging as well. But you found the culture was open, like people were open to, oh yeah, okay, I should do it in 1 week instead of 3.
I think, it takes a certain mindset to be okay with it. Because at the same time, you can be starting a campaign, let's say, for a launch of a city with a product. And after a month, suddenly someone says, okay, we don't have the results. We need to change again. We're moving to a different city now. But you have put work to set it up. You have put work to get everything to run on that campaign. And now you're being asked. So having to embrace the mindset of change and what actually, people apply to the company and they say change or innovation. Great. What that means in real on the everyday life is a very much different thing. I don't know. There's also periods of our life when we can be okay with that pace of change. Right. Not every year. Not every time, so I always try to be mindful of the people who are on my team. Is like if I'm feeling that there is a lot of energy from like, by the way, I just got my campaign. I've been waiting for this data. I had everything. I had the strategy. I have the prioritization. I'm going to get my results and I haven't yet seen results. And now you're asking me to drop everything and I'll move to the next thing.
Yeah, that can be tough.
Right. There's an attachment to all these, this energy we put. Right. And so that change. And so pretty much, again, you come back to the ball of like mindset. How do we see the change itself? How is our relationship with change?
It's difficult. We want to hold on to the stuff that we've been doing, but sometimes you have to let go to move on, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And of course, in the execution level, it's a lot more harder.
Yeah.
In the management level, it is part of the culture, but on execution, that's where it takes resources. Yeah. That's where people invest many times to build things, to prepare things, and then suddenly a whole new plan, a whole new strategy, a whole new product. We
have to adapt and keep moving forward,
that's
right? It's super tough. So in terms of change, there's change in the company, but there's also change like professionally, like as an individual. People used to stay at companies for 10, 20, 15, 20, 30, or 30 years. And now people change a bit more quickly. Like, do you think that's a good idea? Or do you think people should get used to staying at companies longer to learn more? Or do you think, if you, or just do whatever you feel, because if that's who you are, what are your thoughts on, or some people might even feel like if you change, you're learning at each company and you're taking those lessons to the next company. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you think it's really individual?
So I can only speak for my own experience. And I think if I had to look at the average period, would probably be in the last 8 years, probably between 2.5, to 3 years. And I think the average is actually changing in the last 3 years a little bit. It's getting shorter, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the main things around like my professional career has been, what am I learning? Where's my learning path here? And that, and of course the financial benefits of being on a career path. So I think it's like, okay, I can do what I did before. What can I earn versus my need of, I need to learn something new. Am I learning something new, or am I just executing what I have executed in a different company again and again?
Just copy and paste.
Copy and paste. You know, and I believe like you go through parts of your career when you can copy and paste and you're improving, or you're taking from something you learn and you're building it as your own.
Yeah.
But the learning is, how much do you want to learn?
Yeah, I think that's a really important tip. I think so. Like, people can have this idea that, like, these fixed ideas, like, I have to stay somewhere for 3 years, or I have to stay somewhere for, insert amount of time, and they just kind of just get caught in that, as opposed to just, am I learning more? And if I am, I'll stay, and if I'm not, maybe it's time to move on and move up.
So, for example, in sales, because one of it is, in order to learn the next position, sometimes your company you will be in doesn't have it available.
Right.
And you have to make a decision that you're going to wait until that position becomes available, and someone comes on to you and says, like, we would like you, Victor, to take this role, the next role in the ladder. So the company has its own cycle, right? They know when they're going to grow. They know when they will need the next manager or the next VP or the next director. And you have to be very honest, and you have to understand, the business plan, and you can, every employee has access to those things. So you can really know if things are going according to track. If you care about this, you can see, okay, are we expanding markets? What are the skills that are required? And you can build them along, so you can set it up and see if it's in your horizon. If it's not in your horizon, then the best thing is try to meet the profile as well as possible. And then you're going to have to jump into the fact that another company might have that opportunity open up sooner than your current employer.
Right. It's like a stretch goal, right? What do I need to do to get there and make yourself the best fit? So sometimes when I'm speaking to clients, they say, I don't meet 100% of the requirements. And I say, yeah, but maybe nobody applying for the role meets 100% of the requirements. But you're negotiating with yourself in that circumstance, as opposed to allowing the professional on the other side of the table, who knows the company, who knows the job, who knows exactly who they want to work with. Why don't we give them a chance to decide as well?
Yeah.
Right?
So I'll give you an interesting example. Like in Uber, for example, because they were much already a grown tech startup, not even startup, it's a grown tech company. The ladder was very defined.
Right.
Okay. Many years you had to be in each role to move on to the next role. What are very defined, what skills you need to come. While if you came from outside of the company, if you presented with the right set of skills, you might be able to insert yourself at much different level of the ladder.
Right.
And I think this is one of the things that I realized is, for me to, it happens in different circumstances, but what I have seen is I could either have waited for the internal process, and that'll be now you have to be in this level at least 2 years experience, or year and a half. I already find a company which will take me because they appreciate my experience, because they appreciate the company that I previously worked, they appreciate my skills, and they believe that I can bring what I have learned and what I do to their company, even if I haven't yet. So you kind of save a couple of months, you can save a year sometimes.
Yeah. By making that jump and
making the jump,
backing yourself a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And owning the experience that you're able to, that you have learned all of these things, and now you can bring that knowledge in your own way.
And typically when you go to the new company, how long do you think it takes to settle in, understand the processes and procedures, maybe learn a little bit extra?
Yeah.
Like, because that can be scary for people, right?
Yeah. So normally, most of the times when I kind of join the new company, they ask, what is your kind of like transition plan? And normally it says 3 months. This is the time that it takes me, the first month, to get to know the company, to get to know the product, and to get to know the team. I don't change anything on the first month. I observe. And this, sometimes you have to negotiate as well, because sometimes, the company, you don't know what point of the change of the transition that your position became available for. So they might want to tell you like, no, we need everything solved already things being solved on the first month. But how do you bring change when you don't actually know what you're changing?
What am I changing, right?
So you have to negotiate already beforehand in the transition period. And this is, again, things that I learned from trial and error from different companies.
Yeah.
That now if I join a company, I already present, like, this is how I execute my first 3 months. Don't ask me for results on the first month. What changes are you expecting on the first month when it comes to dramatic metrics changing revenue or performance? Because I would tell you, like, I cannot change performance on the first month.
Yeah.
Don't expect it from me.
So you're setting expectations straight away, 30, 60, with your 30, 60, 90-day plan.
Yes.
And then they know what to expect. And so you're starting off really on a strong.
I think 3 months, it's a very good negotiation with your hiring manager. Because 6 months, trust me, after 3 months, many things will change. Because you realize that actually, even when you were hired, the information that they gave you is very different from the first month.
Right.
You can be painted a rainbow of potential opportunities that the company is having, but then when you're actually observing what is happening, and sometimes you observe things that they haven't even observed, and I like many sometimes the companies where the CEO or whoever is you're hiring above you gives you like, I would love to hear what you have seen in the first month.
Nice.
Because now you're bringing the first perspective of like the people who are inside the circle. They're like, they haven't realized anymore because they're there for so long.
So that's like a super useful perspective immediately just coming in, and you're kind of like a sales consultant, or you're like the outside consultant.
Approach it like a consultant. Consultant is never going to give you like too much of a low path.
You've no emotion in there, right? Because you're not attached to any, this is my project and everything about it is perfect. And you're kind of coming in as the outside perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I give myself the first month to look into it, and then first month observe, second month put a working plan. And then you start kind of making the transition, small transitions on the second month, and on the third month, you're already kind of implementing some of the things that will have most impact.
So small transitions, why? Like to achieve buy-in, to make sure everything gets smooth? Because sometimes I guess, people, going in, it's like, I'm going to change everything. It suggests that everything we're doing is not good, right?
I have tried that and it's tough because, people need to get to know you.
Right.
And I think that the moment that you take the time in the first month to actually have those one-on-ones, to understand, to see just them doing their job, and understand, because some people you will come in sometimes as if it's the early parts of your career, you can come in and say, it's like, oh, this is what I did in my previous company, just copy paste, implement it. But if someone is already doing a great thing in their own way, maybe you can learn something completely, and something that you haven't noticed because the product, the clients. So again, I don't bring any change in the first month. I just need to observe and kind of from there get inspired.
Fantastic. That makes a ton of sense. I think it's very good. It's a very good tip, very good piece of wisdom for anyone going into it.
But the first thing is manage expectations of the people who are hiring you.
Right.
Manage expectations of the people, because you really need to be able to ask, what do you expect of me on the first month, second month? Because then that way you're not caught up with the fact that you're hired, you celebrate your job, and then suddenly you have 20 meetings around the metrics that haven't been going right, or you have been like, oh, we need to restructure the team because we have financial pressure.
Right.
You need to know before, or otherwise negotiate that. For example, I've been in a situation where I will come in on the first week and I'll be like, okay, we need to fire one of these two people because of performance. And I'll be like, give me 30 days to realize if this is the right thing to do.
Right.
And that's a negotiation that you need to establish. You need the time to observe, because if you come in and you execute on firing someone within the first 30 days, this is the perception of the rest of the team came in. I'm going to get from you. Did you even care about those people that you're laying off?
Right. Yeah.
And so you want to give yourself those 30 days.
You could be the bad guy straight away.
Actually, the company, sometimes they just need to get someone to do those things that haven't been done by the previous person, or based on the context of the company's needs.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help you in the midterm. It doesn't help the company. So again, salary for a company of an extra month of a person the benefit, if you present it on the way, like this is what will be the negative impact of me as coming in as a change management into a company, will have ripple effects.
But also you can come in and you can speak to you listen to the person, speak to them, figure out what's not working, and maybe actually help keep them along, help them perform better, because maybe the relationship or the rapport, whatever, wasn't working for whatever reason.
Exactly.
In the previous case. So you're quite a negotiator then at the start when you're speaking to companies. You're not just saying, the numbers are okay. Like, I'm happy with the salary. I'm happy with the terms and conditions. Let's come in. You're kind of saying, these are my requirements. Then you've almost got your own list of requirements when you're going to a company. Like, do I have 30, 60, 90 days? Do I have a team I can work with? Do I have certain resources? Is that right?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you know where you're getting into.
Very good.
Otherwise, you're going to be thrown into the fire. Right. And that could be the case in many times where when your position became open, it became for a reason because someone was laid off, someone left, or there's a really drastic need for a change.
Do you feel that, does that allow them to kind of give you more respect almost? Okay, but this guy's really kind of asking important questions and he's kind of negotiating, or does it bring any tension to the conversation?
It's very important to establish trust. And this is one of the things that is very important. It's like, do you trust me to be able to work?
Right.
And then giving you the right reasons why, based on experience now,
right?
Because I've seen it. And not all the time will be 100% what I want, but then we'll find a middle way. Yeah. Maybe I'll say, okay, maybe the person who's going to do the firing is going to be another person in the organization. It's not going to be me.
Right. I love that because you're able to bring it, you're able to come to them in a positive way and tell them what you need, but also be comfortable to require things, be comfortable to ask things. I think in negotiations, sometimes people can feel like, I need this so much more than you need me. Whereas really you're building the trust and you're setting out the expectations from the start and you're on the right foot from the very start. Can I ask you, switching a little bit to remote work, you've been remote working for how long now?
So it's going to be about close to 3 years now.
And how do you find that? What are the pros and cons to remote work for you?
So the beginning of the story starts when I moved to Portugal in 2019. And when I realized there is actually a topic, there's such thing that exists as such as remote work, So coming in with the whole nomadic space and community and meeting people from around the world doing a variety of different jobs, not actually specifically straight away in the area of business development, sales, or management, but across different things. And that, there's a lifestyle, that there's a way of work, both from the financial aspect and the career aspects and of making a living. That's been quite a beautiful journey. But for me, one of the major things that happened is already pre-pandemic, I already had been looking into how could remote work in terms of my own career, sales management. And it was very difficult because it was sales. It's an industry, as a business, part of business is used to as being a very physical interaction. Space of the business,
Right, going to the meeting rooms, putting the presentation up, right?
Exactly. Team meetings, motivation. You have everybody with the same energy. You want to have also this kind of, I would say it's many companies, there's a lot of micromanagement of teams, but, or just being in the same space, many things, because it's a process of a lot of emotional and energy in terms of discipline and actions and so on. So people really had this mindset that you have to be physically there.
Right.
That's how people work. Is you see someone next to you working really hard, you get inspired, you're learning. There's a lot of,
and also as a director, as a manager, trying to motivate people, empower them.
Exactly. So I already started looking a little bit pre-pandemic. What were the opportunities? What were the companies? And there were some examples around, how to build the right processes. I didn't see it in any large scale companies. It was a lot in smaller firms that were selling business development, outsourcing business development,
right,
which was like built build processes and then kind of set up your team from remote for
like
a company.
Being a contractor?
Like a contractor, yes. And then the pandemic came. And I remember even at the company at that time, Uber, where I was working during the pandemic, we were keeping actually people working at the office until the very last minute. Only when the government said, we cannot come to the office, that's when we had the whole setup here in Portugal and in Lisbon for teams for the whole EMEA region. So we ran every single business development sales team for the whole of Europe and Middle East. And Africa was run Europe and Middle East mainly, because Africa was run from Cairo, was here in Lisbon. So you have a huge amount of people, all centralized. Right. There's a lot of energy, a lot of there's a lot of perks as well. There's a beautiful office and a lot of things build up to have this environment. And suddenly we're kind of told, we got to do our job, but we got to do it 100% remote from tomorrow.
Go.
What is very beautiful, I think, that what has changed in terms of the pandemic, I was allowed to see, is that many business areas that had this mindset that things would only work on in person, suddenly now I have been able to build my own personal experience of delivering my own projects, delivering my own results, doing exactly the things that I used to do before in person on a remote basis. And I think that's what it's dramatically changed many industries, for the marketing, for HR, for the areas of sales, that actually we have built the knowledge and how we can run still things on a remote basis. Of course, there are a lot of challenges. There has to be completely a change of dynamic around how we do things at each step, from onboarding and hiring to tools and teaching people, preparing people, training, team building, creating culture, and to all the way to actually getting them to the results.
Right.
We have to change many things along the face, but we have enough of the examples of that things are possible. And I think that's a little bit for me on my own career has been now. I have chosen that the remote lifestyle, or choosing a company that allows me to have the lifestyle of remote in my job, is the most important thing, because I know that I can deliver the same results that I used to. So
fantastic. So you've been able to bridge that gap completely in terms of like the results delivered in the office to the results delivered remotely.
Yes.
Do you have any I'm interested in tips in terms of managing a team and motivating and empowering them. What do you think works the best when you're working remotely? Because some people feel like being in the office is the only way to do it. How do you engage them? Is it the one-to-one calls, or is it just being a good manager remotely as opposed to being a good manager across the boardroom table?
Yeah. It's a lot more challenging, I'll be honest. To be honest, I still believe that one-on-one contact allows you to really open up just on an individual basis. Like, if most of us, when we're in the pandemic, we missed that connection of sitting down with a coffee, looking at each other's eyes. There's nothing that is going to replace that. So establishing what is trust is a different thing. So I have experience of having had my team that I physically was connected to, and I had a culture to move in that team to a remote. So I kind of jumped over the obstacle of having to build a culture remotely, right? And then later on in the other 2 years, I had a hybrid, and then I also did the one where I actually haven't met my team at all, right. And I think each of those stages kind of brings a different hurdle. It is definitely challenging to build the culture, to get to know people when you haven't met physically. So again, I highly recommend that as part of your negotiation coming into a role, that you do negotiate or ask when is the next milestone for the physical interaction that happens.
Right. So still having a hybrid of physical and virtual is really important.
I would ask from the employer, like, when is the next company event? Is there any budget to actually gather my team every 6 months? And when can I use that budget? Because again, I still believe that the physical connection will enable many of the other things that you need, especially with trust.
Fantastic.
I
love these recurring themes, or these themes that go through, which is like building those strong connections with people, building trust, really listening to people carefully. That's That's really great to hear, right? And it's something that we all missed during the pandemic. I'm also interested in your passion projects as well. Could you tell us a little bit about, you've got a couple of passion projects on the side?
Yeah. One of the passion projects that I started this year was in the area of well-being, especially in men, because I think I realized over the last, without, like I said, sometimes we do things and we don't realize. And I realized that well-being in the holistic way, both on the mental, physical, spiritual, they're all interconnected, emotional. So even to do the job, which I think it's been very beautiful, because in sales, you need to care about all of them in order to be able to perform. So emotionally, you need to be able to be at the right level, to be conscious, to be aware, because it is an emotional challenge to be getting 1,000 no's. You can be selling the most VIP service that you could think of, but there's another 3-5 companies like that also want to sell to the same person. Yeah. That person is a very busy person. So it doesn't matter what you're really selling. The person who's being sold to, most of the time, doesn't receive it with welcome arms, unless it's what we call inbound. You know, my experience is mainly on outbound, which is a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
So on the emotional side, on the sometimes people are going through roller coasters. You know, everybody's got a family, everybody's got a partnership, a relationship. So you want everybody to feel open that they can share. And I've seen performance peak within others and within myself when I was going through, for example, relationship breakups. So being conscious that people can openly open about it. It's like, okay, I know, like, if you're going through this, I'm not going to push you against the wall, because it's not going to get any better. So how do we make sure that we maintain as much as we can? You know, how do we get you the support? Teammates, how do we spread workload, whatever. Physical, you know, I used to say, what do we need as a team? You know, meditation. I introduced in my last 2 teams the meditation practice. I'll tell them about my meditation practice of myself and how it helped me to actually ground myself. I realized that many times when we had a really difficult conversation with a client who just, you know, either cursed at us, or you have worked on a proposal that is been going for 2 months, if you're working on a launch cycle, and then suddenly the person saying, you know what, we're not going to move forward, or I went with someone, you feel betrayed. You know, it's
super emotional.
Very emotional. Upset. So, you know, teaching mindfulness from my own experience around how I manage this, how to manage change for using these tools was very, very important. And the whole concept of well-being now then became something that I became more conscious about. And in the last year, I became conscious around well-being around men and the challenges that men faced around this area, expression of our boundaries, expression of our needs, our relationship with certain things that guide our lives, like competition, trust, that actually blocked us from actually becoming or being a better version of ourselves. And so for this, one of the very simple concepts that I came across last year was men's circles. And I experienced that when I was traveling in Southeast Asia. Men's circles are a safe space of expression where we would gather with a group of men to establish that there is a space where we can reestablish what trust means for ourselves. Nice. And be able to openly share any of the challenges or feelings that we're navigating at a point of our life. The goal is for us to be able to rebuild and reprogram what trust means amongst us, and find a channel where we can actually bring our voice that normally we would try to hold back because of programming of society, culture. Sometimes I've been in the position where even at work, I was not able to actually fully express what I was going at work and the challenges. So creating a safe space that you can actually touch on anything that is happening.
That's beautiful. So you're getting trust, you're getting camaraderie, you're getting support, you're getting a listening ear. Maybe you're also hearing, oh, this person's struggling with the same thing I'm struggling with. So you don't feel so maybe alone in the struggle anymore. Yeah. Do you feel it takes people a while to warm up to it? Or is that you as a facilitator used to doing this sort of stuff at work so you can kind of bring it quickly?
Definitely is a challenge because, you know, we're not really we don't trust. I think it's one of the questions that I ask very on at the beginning of the session is like, okay, guys, how's your experience with trusting other men, or do you feel like you trust other men in general at this point? Most men will put their hands up and be like,
What is that?
They don't.
Why do you think that is?
Culture.
Yeah.
Culture has a big part of it.
Bad experiences.
Bad experiences. You know, I think culture creates behaviors that are reinforced. And those behaviors, we have either seen them out of, or created, you know, even if we just observe them, even if we haven't lived them ourselves,
right?
You know, you start wondering, oh, is this why men don't keep? One of the key things is like a beautiful word about in terms of values that we try to establish at the beginning of the circles to see that what actually means trust for us and what will help us. And many men will always say it's trust means for me respect. It means integrity. It means empathy. And then when we start kind of like digging into those three in terms of experiences, both from our childhood, our teenage years, our work life in our 20s and 30s, we realize that we really struggle with those three. We struggle with seeing positive figures that show integrity. Sometimes we look ourselves in the mirror and we're like, are we really living in integrity? Do we really, you know, are we really empathetic, you know, to ourselves? So most of those three things are actually, they're within us, are not actually 100% clear. And so, you know, we kind of also portray into others the fact that, oh, if I'm not doing it, I don't feel it in the other person. So
it's fascinating.
It's this circle that is created that blocks us.
So you're trying to reshape those habits or those beliefs so that then start with the self, right?
Yeah. So, you know, this the whole topic of the circle is something that has been going on forever. This concept of a circular thinking, that we're all connected, that it goes all the way to tribes, to the, you know, Africans, Aborigines, Native Americans, Native in South America, anywhere where there's tribes, smaller groups of societies, you know, we used to have these circles of sharing openly around the challenges of the tribe. And this has been lost quite dramatically. I think actually the concept is a lot more present in our society, in Western society, amongst women. Women actually are the ones, if you looked at how many circles, women's circles are in Lisbon, it's maybe 20 more than in Lisbon. There's actually 2 only.
What do you think it is stops men? Is it those same things again? Is it trust? Like, what do you think it is stops them from maybe sharing what's going on with them, or sharing weakness, sharing vulnerability? Like, do you think it's just feeling awkward, or do you think it's not used to it, or they don't know it exists, or maybe it doesn't exist where they are?
I don't think we have experienced what actually means a safe space of expression. And it's not, and, you know, sometimes I hear women, in particular friends, maybe be like, oh, men don't know how to express, or men cannot express their emotions. It's not that we don't know how to, we just haven't had experience in a space that we can,
right? And
what we need. And this is also very important to understand what kind of space, what is a safe space for us mean.
Sure.
Establishing that and becoming conscious, like, okay, what do I need to actually be able to express everything that I would like to share?
Yeah. I always just felt that men expressed it in slightly different ways, like at the football or at the rugby or whatever it is, by shouting at the referee that was a way of expression. Whereas women maybe sitting down, having a coffee, looking straight into each other's eyes. So I wonder, is it just a different way of expression? Maybe?
No, I think we will do exactly the same thing, but maybe we just need a different thing.
A different layer of trust.
A different level of getting to that point. Yeah. You know, in many of the circles, we would practice many of the exercises of connection, of being comfortable with sitting and observing the pain that each man is going through on their day. And then many of the times, you know, what it means to have, let's say, like holding space for each other. You know, we don't want to jump directly into pragmatism of what you need to do or the solution, but actually, I just need to listen to what you have to say. I don't need to even go hug you or tell you that everything's going to be okay or give you any pity. We just need to be there, listening. And then when I share my side, you realize I'm also being vulnerable like you and sharing you. That holding space allows to be, okay, this is safe space. Safe space means that you can speak and I can speak. We don't have to say anything. And it's okay to feel whatever we're feeling.
I love that. I love that holding space part, because I think so often the brain just kind of goes, oh, I've got a couple of solutions. and it's not the moment for solutions.
Yes.
Right.
Most of the time we just need the basic part is expression, just being heard.
Yeah. That's super. I love the way, Victor, you're so many layers underneath it in terms of with your work and also with your men's circle. So many layers beneath thinking about all these things in a very deep way. You're bringing a ton to your work and a ton to your personal life. Can I ask you, I feel like I could talk to you all day, right? But could I ask you, that's the benefit of the men's circle, right? So this is like a mini advertisement for the men's circle. But can I ask you, just to wrap up, if you're speaking to, and maybe in a personal way and a professional way, if you're to, because you've quite a lot of experience now from travel, from working at different companies, from working remotely, working in the office, being a leader, being a director, and setting up the circle. If you're to give advice to your younger self, 18-year-old, 20-year-old Victor, personally or professionally, what would you? He's kind of like going out in the world trying to figure out what's going on. What would you be? What would you be saying to him? Or what would you be saying to somebody watching this?
Yeah. I think the first thing it's because I think if I was to look at the Victor in the early 20s, the level of confidence and trust that I can see when I see myself in the mirror today or in the last couple of years is the relationship that I have with how I observe myself. And in this time, I can observe myself and see when the fear is there, and understand that fear is okay. It's going to be there. Self-judgment is going to be there. Understand that the voices that are telling me that I'm not good enough, that I don't have all the experience, that I'm not worth it, that there is way better people to do the same job that I might be applying, or the project that I'm trying to think, or the vision that I would like, or the change that I would like to, even with my team. Those things like the inner voice, the self-judgment, the self-doubt, I would just tell the Victor, just hold a little bit more, just observe those things a little bit more longer and disconnect them from who you are. And I think this is the question that just became a lot more prominent later on in my life, in my career, impacted drastically. It was who I am. Because the moment that I disconnect, that I am not those... the voice, I'm not the self-judgment, I'm not the fears, is the moment that I started to observe them and actually allow myself to have a lot more trust. Of course, the experience of having done many things and failed and done them well helped me towards having self-trust. But what was most important is disconnecting the fact that I was not all of those things. And I think those voices, those thoughts, those were really prominent in my early 20s. And it's like, okay, we can learn to have that observation of ourselves, to ask those questions, to allow to have that kind of energetic space. We will be able to actually allow ourselves to take that little gamble on ourselves, to go after those projects, to make those improvements, to make those jumps.
Hold space for yourself almost, right?
It is kind of like hold space, don't rush, just observe a little bit more. And yes, you got everything that, as I said, like before we can try to help anybody else, we got to help ourselves first, right? So one of the things about the men's circles is I'm doing it because I'm along the process, because I'm also growing for it. So yes, it's beautiful. Holding the space for ourselves. Holding the space for ourselves. That's great.
Space for ourselves. Fantastic. No, absolutely. We're all on that journey and we'll continue to be on that journey, right? Beautiful. I love it, Victor. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom, so much information, so many good practical tips. A real pleasure speaking to you. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you for giving me that time and space. And I really hope that, some young people or people at whatever point of the career can watch it and kind of just take that as an inspiration to observe.
I hope so too.
Thanks, Ronan. Come here for a hug.